Okay, now this man goes to the doctor, okay? And the doctor says, "Hello, what can I do for you?" And the man says, "I'm a moth." And the doctor says, "You don't need me, you need a psychiatrist." And the man says, "That's where I was going, but I saw your light on."
Abandoned buildings have a way of talking. Before state institutions like Sunland and Tallahassee were finally knocked to the ground, those final images spoke again of unspeakable times. Of dark days when people with developmental disabilities lived on the edge of society.
They were essentially considered non-citizens, non-people. They had no role in our society other than just to stay at home or be placed in institutions where they were being taken care of, and that you just needed to make sure that nothing bad happened to them. And that was really justification for building thousands of institutions in this country and placing people with developmental disabilities in those institutions.
Drugs were often used to control behavior. Those with developmental disabilities had no life. They made no decisions. The future was bleak.
I have a real issue. I have a real issue with this, and I know that there needs to be change. There must be at least 1,000 mentally retarded children in Hillsborough County. We as parents of these children, it's really important to come together and talk about the common problems we face. We need to make plans for the future, their future. The stigma attached to these children is wrong. Society, our community needs to come together and welcome these children as it would welcome any child.
Our children are stuck in the shadows.
It started with a small gathering of interested parents, but the true inspiration for J. Clifford MacDonald's untiring journey on behalf of people with developmental disabilities was his own son.
Yeah, George MacDonald was pretty typical growing up in those days. He wasn't allowed to go to school. He wasn't allowed to be involved in other activities. They weren't involved in things like scouting and the like. And so as he grew up, his options were very limited. J. Clifford MacDonald changed this equation by refusing to accept the status quo and by seeing enormous value in people with developmental disabilities. And back in those days, in the early 50s, that was quite radical.
6 decades later, J. Clifford MacDonald's legacy lives on. His vision has given others a voice in who they are and what they want to do with their lives.
The cattle are prowling, the coyotes are howling.
At MacDonald Training Center's Plant City location, Jonathan Davis is a budding musician. Born blind and diagnosed with autism, Jonathan wants to be an entertainer.
Music always has just been making me happy, and it's been my life ever since I was little. I've reached the point where now I can, when I hear something, I'd play it by ear.
MacDonald Training Center has been a leader in how people with developmental disabilities should be perceived. Not only did we open the first preschool in 1954, we opened first group homes a couple years later, and then the Saratoga Sheltered Workshop, which started sending the signal that yes, people with developmental disabilities can learn to work, can work in the community, can be contributing members of the community. And we were also, through the decades, in the late 1970s, we were the first organization in the state to be involved with supported employment, where we worked to support people in jobs in the community. And then a year after that, one of the first in supported living, where people don't have to live in group homes, but in fact live in their own apartments, their own houses in the community, and are supported that way. Anything that keeps people from being a valued and contributing member of their community is what we go after. And I think we've done a great job in shattering those barriers. You can look around this room here and see the incredible art from people who just a number of years ago never even touched a brush.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
J. Clifford MacDonald's crusade in post-World War II America was so pioneering, he was awarded the nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
I can fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings.
The fact that President Kennedy is the one that made the decision to honor J. Clifford MacDonald is very important, because his statement during his inaugural address that ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. J. Clifford MacDonald lived that. So he never asked what anybody could do for him, but he went ahead and decided he was going to change the world for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and he in fact did that.
And I'd be nothing without you. Did you ever know that you're my hero?
So what is MacDonald Training Center? MTC is a beacon of hope. It's proof that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have always had the skills. They were just never allowed to express them.
I
love my job.
They should grasp their own personal destiny and live life to the fullest. And that's radical. And the fact that we're still radical after 60 years in how we perceive and how we partner with and treat people with intellectual and developmental disabilities is really the legacy of J. Clifford MacDonald and our founders.
Hey,
George. George, how are you?
How you doing? I think George and we're gonna go to a ball game. You wanna go watch some baseball?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you go.
We can do that. That would be good.